All right, everyone. So welcome. Thanks for joining me. Today, we're going to talk about the 6 habits for building resiliency, especially in these uncertain COVID times. So most of us, if not all of us, have been outside our comfort zones of our regular routine and normal life since March. Everyone is dealing with a lot of change and uncertainty. We obviously did not anticipate this happening in January. I know I didn't anticipate this even happening in February. So we're all into doing this together, and everyone has their own experiences of how it's personally impacted them. So this first statistic here is actually before the pandemic even began. So imagine how people might be feeling right now today. Stress has a direct impact on other parts of our lives as well. So at least a third, or 34%, report fatigue due to stress, and just about half, or 54%, report laying awake at night due to worries, anxieties, and daily stresses. The Kaiser Family Foundation in March found that 72% of lives were disrupted, and 45% of people said that they had stress due to the pandemic and that it had a negative impact on their mental health. So those are high numbers, obviously believable with what's going on. Again, just a lot of uncertainty and disruption in our normal lives. And even now at the end of May, there's still a lot of uncertainty as we head into June. So I think that this is really interesting and super important to talk about. And it's what our brain does and how we respond, our bodies respond with stress and anxiety. So when we're anxious, the brain releases a bunch of stress hormones. Cortisol is the well-known example of a stress hormone, and this actually creates a fight or flight response, that adrenaline rush in our bodies. So our heart rates and our blood pressure are going to increase, and our brain becomes super alert, or what we call hypervigilant, as you can see there in the brain. So this causes us to have then tunnel vision when it comes to our worries. It can cause a lot of distractions and also lead to problems focusing, just because we do have that tunnel vision and we're still stuck and all we can think about is our stresses or anxiety. I'm sure everyone has felt that way in some capacity at one point. So in short-term situations, obviously it makes sense that our brains are wired to do this so that we can survive threats out in the wild. But as we're approaching week 12 of this pandemic, where we're at home, it's really important to find that balance so we can lower those levels of stress hormones if they're not already there. So when our cortisol levels are too high for too long, it can have negative health impacts. Like I said, high blood pressure, sleep disruption, low energy, increase in weight, increase in blood sugar, and also affect our moods. So what can we do to combat this? Resilience. So resilience is the new big trendy word. I know we talked about mindfulness and resilience earlier in the year, but really focusing on how we can use this now to our advantage. So in short term, this means to bounce back from hardship. So this includes our thoughts, behaviors, and actions, and how we can adapt to adversity, stress, and tragedy. This is not usually innate response for us, so think of this as a skill that we need to continuously work on, just like with exercise or with any sort of knowledge or skill that we're building at work. So we're continuously trying to build this, but also to maintain it. So it helps us not only survive, but to thrive. So the rest of the presentation, we're going to really focus on 6 habits on how to be resilient, especially tailored to this COVID time, so that we can maximize joy, purpose, and of course, productivity. The first one is social connections. So humans are social creatures, as we know, and we are designed to connect with others in our environment. Sean Anker, he's a Harvard professor and also an author. He says that social connection is the strongest predictor of happiness. So in this picture here, this was in 1995, and it's the rescuing hug. So these two preemie twins were not expected to live. So a nurse actually put them in the same nursery together, and the older twin, the stronger twin, put her arm around her sister. The nurse did not do that. That was just something that this baby did all on her own. And what happened is that these two young ladies who are just about my age are still doing well today. And what happened was that support from the older sister, it actually stabilized their heart rate and their temperature. So that is just, I think, is super cool story. So social support can also lower our cortisol, and it's critical for resilience and just to know that you're not alone. So here we ask, do you have someone you can count on when things go wrong? Do you have someone that you can talk about these problems with, or someone special to be with when you're in need? Those are so important for building resilience. It is also important to note that we're all going through this at the same time. And as I said in the beginning, have different responses to this. So just keep in mind that we also need to offer to be that confidant and supportive friend and special person to others in need as well. So here, I love this picture. I think it's so cute, for lack of a better word. I've seen a lot of people walking with their masks on, socially distant. So love, relationships, helping others, those are not canceled. Those are not, we're not under a stay at no love order. So social connections with physical distancing is really important. And I like that use of term physical distancing, because that's really what it is. We're not trying to limit our social interactions. We're trying to limit our physical interactions. Number 2, we have gratitude. So gratitude is a deep conscious appreciation of our lives, experiences, and feelings of gratitude actually release dopamine, which is the reward hormone. So quick ways that we can shift our mindset. Gratitude can increase optimism and happiness, reduce stress and anxiety, improve our sleep, and it improves our relationships because we're thinking more about the rewards and counting our blessings. Bringing joy into our day. When you're stressed, try and think of a happy memory, which can actually increase serotonin, and serotonin is the happy hormone. So gratitude can show to release dopamine, reward, and serotonin, happiness. So thinking of happy things when you're stressed is a good way to combat that. Also listing things that you're grateful for and going back when you're feeling stressed out or down and looking at that list of blessings that you wrote. And gratitude, like resilience, is also a habit to create, so do it with intention, something that's going to have to be intentional for you to think about and to work on. This is also a good time to show gratitude for others. So here's a sign. I'm sure we've all seen signs around like this. And does anyone else have examples of what they've seen recently? I know one I can think of, as I've seen on Yammer, is that giving out Coors Lights and other Molson Coors products to our healthcare workers, or others who are essential workers. So that's one example. If you guys can think of any more, feel free to chime in that you've seen or that you think is positive.
I saw a little drive-by party in my neighborhood yesterday.
Oh, that's so sweet.
Oh, yeah.
I love that. That reminds me of the story of the woman who was 100 years old, and she had a drive-by party. So all these people drove by with signs and honked for her. She couldn't be with her family. I thought that was sweet. Making cookies or making food for our healthcare workers or essential workers. And of course, that includes everyone from those who are still working in pharmacies, the grocery stores, just doing little things to show that we appreciate the work that they're doing on the front lines. And even our brewery folks who are still working hard to give us some tasty Coors Lights and Colorado Natives, all that good stuff. They're definitely essential as well.
There's a local restaurant in Wheat Ridge that gave like 2,000 meals to healthcare workers. So you can always support them and then they can return. So Grammy's Goodies, it's really good Italian.
Grammy's Goodies. Awesome. Thanks for that, Cassie. That's a good one. I've also seen a couple other restaurants in the local area who are donating meals to kids in need, because a lot of kids, they get their meals at school, and because school has been canceled, they haven't been able to. So I've seen some of that too. Those are other ways that we can help support that are, not exactly making signs or doing it ourselves, but supporting those efforts. And just gratitude that maybe we're able to support. I think that's something to feel blessed about as well. A lot of people don't have the means to support in that way financially. Another number 3 we have is mindfulness. So I loved this stat here. I thought it was funny. There's about 50% chance your mind is wandering right now. So when we're distracted about worrying, or even just distracted in general, we become more anxious because our brain actually likes to ruminate on the things that keep us in a negative state. So our brain's kind of working against us here. So mindfulness is the being present and being in the moment. It goes hand in hand with gratitude for sure. And meditation is a way to be more mindful, but they're not the same thing. We went over mindfulness earlier in the year, so let me know if you have any more questions about mindfulness, and I can answer those after the presentation. Of course, our 4th one, it has to be movement. So especially with our wellness centers, our fitness centers, sports, all of those being closed, purposefully moving our bodies is something we just can't take for granted. Another thing to be thankful for and have gratitude for. And of course, exercise, we decrease the risk of diabetes, high blood pressure, and we increase our daily living, so we're strong to do the things that we do every day or like to do. Walking has also been shown to decrease the risk of depression and help those with mild to moderate depression as well. Exercise has also been shown to elevate mood and alleviate stress, and it can also take your mind off of any troubles. So try getting 10K steps a day is a good start, or start the day with a walk, playing with your dog, doing a walking meeting. So just getting movement is going to be really important for building resiliency. It's another way to cope with stress and take your mind off of it and work on personalized goals. When help is needed. So obviously the past 4 habits can help us build resilience, but it's important to know when you or someone you care about could benefit from speaking to an expert, especially because this is a really traumatic time for a lot of people. So it's really crucial to pay attention to yourself and to others for signs and symptoms. So withdrawing or turning to unhealthy habits to cope with stress and anxiety, or changes in behavior, eating, or sleeping. So some things that you can do is, if you see this in someone, is to reach out to them and let them know that you are there for them, that you're supportive, and that you can help them in any way. You should always do that anyway, but especially if you start to see those signs and symptoms. And then you can also reach out to the resources that are listed on this slide for additional help. Finally, our last habit is finding a new normal. So part of being resilient is adapting to change. And by doing this, we can create new daily routines and rituals, and that will give us a sense of stability, security, and also control. So creating daily routines, going to bed and getting up at the same time, setting a goal, being purposeful, plan something enjoyable like a physical distancing date, limit or avoid the news. I saw that you should only get the news that you need or that will be beneficial, and then turn it off or shut off your computer. Get what you need for yourself and for your family and to be in the know and be safe, but try not to overload yourself with too much information coming in, and to let go. So this is our challenge now. This is what resilience is all about. So we can't always change the thing that life is going to throw our way, but we can change ourselves and how we react to it, and how we view the world, and how we view what's going on in the world. So Viktor Frankl, he was a psychiatrist in Austria, but he spent many years of his life in a concentration camp in Nazi Germany. And there he lost almost all of his loved ones, his immediate family, and even his wife, which is so heartbreaking and definitely gives you a lot of perspective to what those people were going through in World War II. And he wrote this book, Man's Search for Meaning. And he talks about how nearly everything has been taken from him. And the one thing that couldn't have been taken from him or any man is your freedom. So he said, when we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves, so that freedom to change and to adapt. He believed that love for others and then humor and being out in nature could offer a sense of meaning even when in suffering. And I thought that this quote is just really beautiful. And I thought that was a really great story as well. So in summary, things that we can do to build resilience: build social connections, practice gratitude, engage in mindfulness by staying active, knowing when to reach out to help or help someone else, and creating new routines can also really help build resilience and staying strong even in these different times. And that is my presentation today. So this is our last wellness webinar. The website, we have more information on this, including a handout. So take a peek at that Wellness Wednesday blog post for more, or to go back through our other presentations. We'll still be around, so if you have any questions about different wellness topics, please feel free to reach out to me, Justin, or Joe directly, or to our shared email account.